Hey, good afternoon,
Hey,
Dan. How you
Eric,
doing? How are you?
can you see? I look like I'm dark again. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I need a lighting expert here. Um, Maybe it's better you
yeah,
can't see me.
yeah. Well, I got to turn mine a little because it's reflecting off my De
Yeah,
Niro glasses in casino.
yeah. I don't know, man. We're good at fighting fires, but when it comes to this technical stuff, man, it's just like I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't figured this out yet. Where the best lighting is. I'm in the kitchen and
yeah,
lights on in my head. So anyway, so yeah, it's been a few days. We haven't been on in a while. Since the 17th, but we're going to talk about taxpayers today, huh?
yeah. Let's give it a go. I can say I've been to a few, all
Yeah,
ranks.
yeah.
Um, got good stories from all ranks as well.
Well, you know what's ironic is that my area where I was, we didn't have really true taxpayers. What we had was we had a lot of multiple dwellings that had stores and
Commercial
whatnot on
on
the
the
first
first.
floor, commercial on the first floor. And the term taxpayer, we all know, was derived back in the 1900s, early 1900s, because what they would do is they would take a tract of land and they would build a building, one story, two story, and it would just be there to pay the taxes, and hence we got the name the taxpayer, right?
Correct.
So it was really just like an investment to pay the taxes until the land got more valuable or whatever, and then they decided to build something else. So I've seen that a lot now in New York City, especially like in my old neighborhood. All the old
Mhm.
taxpayers are gone now. They're all replaced by six-story multiple dwellings, new style, fireproof, with the first floor being commercial, and that's becoming more the norm now. The taxpayers,
Yeah, you're seeing it a lot of places here. It's they're, they're saying it's for more housing, but it's really like trying to get more money, most money as possible. But I know in my district we still got a lot of taxpayers. There's literally one right down the street from my firehouse that I would say, in my time on the job, has had to have had at least six fires. Some more significant than others. The last time it burnt, guy had grilled. It was a small restaurant. He installed grills in the basement because he didn't have room. And of course, he did it on his own with handyman Bob. And
right.
fortunately, it was during the day, so it was one line put it out. But I did notice like people saw more charring than they needed to, and I go, yes, a lot of that charring's from previous fires. So where I'm
Right.
getting at is, especially with the older traditional taxpayer,
Right.
100 years, how many times they've been burnt, remodeled, uh, no permit, no architectural plans. And I also find like, um, and I'm sure it's probably everywhere. I think even the burbs is. I had a block of stores, uh, box 188, Hancock and Jerome. This was probably
Yeah.
the first fire I had when I transferred where I'm at now. Anyways, pull up, the engine's stretching the line, trucks are opening up. So I sent the second truck to the rear. And maybe 5 minutes later, the lieutenant came up. He's like, we'll get it eventually, but everything's bricked over. So I said, okay. Well, and in my mind, I'm going, all right, I'm going to have to modify, you know. So I said, hey, go to the roof, make sure the roof gets vented, and hopefully we'll put this fire out. Um, but what my point is gaining entry into any especially the rear, when you're in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods, could be almost impossible unless you got a team of like 6'5" Navy SEALs with sledgehammers.
Right. Right. You know,
Now, go
it's
ahead.
funny you should say that, though, right? About the forceful entry. Let's talk about forceful entry for a minute. So, I had a fire. I was a lieutenant actually, and it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a restaurant, and it smelled like that, what we call food on the stove, right? It's got that very tinny aluminum smell. But it was this big restaurant. It was probably about 50 by 100, and it had all these roll down gates, and it was going. You could smell it. It was something was definitely going on inside, and it had this massive amount of security with all these window bars, and they had the roll down gates, and then I looked down, and there's like the Bilco doors with a little hasp on it. So I said to the irons guy, I said, listen, I said, just take that little lock, So he snipped it with like bolt cutters, man. It was like nothing. And we opened up the Bilco doors. We went down, went in the basement, and came back up the stairs in the kitchen. And sure enough, we had they had left a pot on the stove. It was cherry red, But one of my point is that, when it comes to forcible entry, right? Sometimes you really need to just take a step back and try to see, like, there's always the weakest link. You could have all these roll down gates and hockey puck locks, the American Series 2000s, but at some point they forget something, and they put a little something lock on maybe a back door, or a side door, or a Bilco door. So I would say, like, when forcible entry, size it up, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is occupancy. A lot of places do get the deliveries in the rear, so there's usually one door so that you should be able to get in. And then you get some that think you're right next to Engine 24, Grove Hall. There's a block. I have a picture somewhere, but everything's bricked over. So I'm assuming they had issues in the past, and whoever owned the building finally said, and I tell you, this crazy call I get one night with Ladder Ford. They're like, we got to force entry into the store. It was closed for the night. Little supermarket that's being torn down for that residential over commercial. Anyways, one of the patrons of the store went to use the bathroom and fell asleep in the bathroom. And now, like 2 a.m, he's calling that he's trapped. And I got to tell you, the guys on the truck ladder, they did a really good job of getting in the store with minimal damage to get this guy out. It was just kind of a funny story. But yeah, I find with fires, you still have to like go in the rear and look. But I try to assess it from my perspective as let me know if you have any difficulties getting in, because that will change my thing. And for me personally, commercial building, you got good smoke or fire showing. I know I want the big line. That's just how I am. I expect it. Like, I was always told that's what you brought in commercial. So,
yeah,
hands
down. Yeah,
we came on when there was none of this touchy-feely. Chief, I think you just did what you were told. You know what I mean?
I know. But let's. I want to expand on that forcible entry, because I have some thoughts about that. Some of my biggest stress when I was a battalion chief was that call in the middle of the night for the odorous smoke, or the recorded alarm, the class 3 we call them, recorded automatic alarm, and you're confronted with this buttoned up, taxpayer with, or a school or whatever it is, and it's all buttoned up, and you don't want to start doing all kinds of damage, for what is basically a false alarm. But then again, you don't want to walk away in case it is something. So I think this is where it really comes into play. One of the tricks I used, I would take a guy, firefighters, and I would put a portable ladder up and just go up to the roof, because sometimes that's the easiest way to get in. That's another oversight. You could hit a scuttle, or maybe even you could look down. You might have a skylight. But I was very reluctant to start doing damage, because it becomes a headache. you start taking locks, and then you have to secure it. You got to call PD, or you got to put locks on it, and it just becomes a big headache.
Yeah, I think too. In sometimes, especially when you're young and new, you notice especially on a truck, you're like, I want to break something. But I remember
Mm.
a guy saying, and I did demo work before I came on, and I remember a guy saying to me, uh, and this was over like something different, but he's like, "Hey kid, learn how to use the tool.
Right.
You learn how to use the tool, less you have to use less strength. Use your head." And sometimes I'll even watch someone swing away a few times, and then I'll say, "Hey, well, I did it more as an officer than as a chief, but like I was kind of like, use your head, like you said, take a step back and look. Do you see any boats? Do you see anything protruding where a lock could be?" Um, I feel like operate with a purpose, but you know what I
Mm.
mean, like so even with a taxpayer, you're looking, okay. Chances are I'm not going to see the rear, but I'll try to have my aide go back there and give me an update, or the second due
Mm.
truck or engine.
Right. Right.
And I feel like with taxpayers, if you don't get them early, you're making a parking lot. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I have a
surrounded.
funny. Yeah. I got a funny story. So I remember you just brought up a story that I remember when I remember when I was a fireman. I was working in the squad. And there was a lot of aggressive guys, let's say. And
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes we would get very focused. So we got called to this taxpayer, and we were assigned to do force entry to search this area or whatever. And it was a very heavy fortified door, and the two guys, they're very very intense, and they're wailing away. And I'm just step back, and I see there's a door here, a double door, and then next to it, maybe 5 feet down, there was just a single door. So I was like, "Hey guys," and they're like, not very politely, but shut up. I said, "But guys, shut up, whatever." So I said, "All right, whatever." So I went over, I took my Halligan, I just popped the door, and then I went around and I opened it up, and they both fell on me, like wailing away on this door. So I mean,
Yeah, I I think of I think everyone has a skill set, like certain, like there's some guys that could open up anything with a butter knife,
right.
and then there's other guys that if they have a tool, do not be within a 10-foot radius of them, or you will get injured. And I find and I think one of the hardest things as a firefighter for me was sometimes when something was difficult, uh, not looking for a plan B, determined to, smash this lock, even when it's
Mm,
gotten to the point where it's like, I think they got water now on the fire, but,
yeah,
instead of stepping back and saying, okay, this approach isn't working,
right.
let me try something else. And I think when you're a new firefighter and even a new chief, when you tell someone to get it done, but you got to remember how difficult some of these taxpayer security systems can be, so to
Right.
speak. The homemade ones. Uh, I had a block of stores once where turned out the guy just littered his roof with like broken glass,
Mm,
like broken bottles.
right.
You know how they do for say pigeons on the wall, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
sure, I
roof
get
was
it.
like that, and it was kind of like, I mean, I
Yeah.
get it, but at the same time, I'm like, what about the repairman that has to go up there? Obviously, the problem was theft, but yeah, I find when I think of taxpayers, like anywhere, you got to get reports from all sides, including the roof.
Right.
Uh, ones that really scare me is, and I shouldn't say scare, that's not the term, is the basement fire.
Yeah.
So down the bottom of the hill where we're at, there's a block that kind of wraps around. It's probably a total of about 100 by, it's not deep, 30, 40 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 40 deep. But anyways, 40 deep. But 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 deep, but 100 kind of go like this. But anyways, 100 It's all one basement that you can only get into from the beauty shop,
Right.
and it comes all the way back. So you pull up. The first door is pushing smoke. You're searching for the fire. You can't. You're never gonna find it, and you just hope somebody eventually goes all the way down the block. And this one is a trapdoor entrance,
Mm-hmm.
which personally myself, if I got a report that there was heavy fire down there, I'd be like, you got about 2 minutes, and then after that, that's why we bought tower ladders. You know what I mean?
Right.
The basement ones kind of, and you'll like this story. So I was visiting in-laws in the Bronx once, and I just happened to hear. I think it went 5 alarms up around the corner. So I said, "Oh, let me go watch." Right under
Mm-hmm.
the L or the train, whatever you guys call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after maybe probably 10 minutes after I heard it, and maybe a few minutes after that, I heard the chief pulling everyone out, going to use tower ladders. But it was under the train, which I was like, oh, I got to watch this. I got to, but they just went down like, what is that? Right off of White Plains, it starts dipping down to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched for a few, and till the NYPD threw me off the fire ground.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what I did like was the efficient use of the buckets.
yeah.
Because when I was on one, we had our own pump, and we actually had two trucks that both had pumps.
Yeah, those are
So
LTIs. We had two in New York. We had 163
yeah,
truck and 14 truck were both LTIs. Everything else was just I was in a Mac tower ladder, 75-foot
yeah,
tower
yeah,
ladder.
yeah. See, now we
But
don't, we don't.
there's a trick to using those tower ladders in a taxpayer, and I think it's a lost art. The trick is to get that bucket off the ground, like 5 feet off the ground, and shoot it. Like they forget that. Like what they do now is they raise the bucket above the roof line and shoot the water down. You really there's an art to it. You kind of got to
Yeah,
get that bucket low and drive that
um,
stream up into the cock loft. You know.
I tell you, I won't. There was fire in the region recently, and I didn't go to. I just happened to see the pictures and videos because I know a lot of sparks, and it's a pre-pipe ladder pipe
Mm-hmm.
shooting downwards in the attic window, and I was kind of like, what's it doing really? Like, if you, I call it what the famous term, public relations firefighting.
Right.
That's when you're doing that to appease the public. And I think you're right.
Sorry about that.
We don't really we no, you don't see really much nomenclature on how to use a tower ladder, and I wonder if it's because a lot of times a lot of the chiefs now they didn't spend any time on one the same way
Mm-hmm.
like you know I spent time on a truck and an engine tower. I think sometimes when you don't understand it, it's just easy to go, pocket out of the way, pocket out of the way.
Mm.
Because to me, a guy on the end of a stick with a ladder pipe, I'm not even sure what are you doing, be honest with you.
The beauty about the towel ladder, I spent 5 years in the bucket. It felt like I was in that bucket all the time. We had so many vacant buildings. We used it. We used it like every time I came to work. And the nice thing about the towel ladder is you could raise, rotate, and extend all at the same time. So it's very versatile. And
Yeah.
the old time is I used to work with this guy Tom McDowell. He was like me. Tom and I always worked together. He was a senior man in 17 truck. And he would make me drive the bucket all the time, and he would make me get as close as I could to the window as possible to get that stream up into the cock loft, and hit
Yeah,
it
yep.
from below. And I had this discussion at FDIC one year. I was talking to John Norman about it. I was like, John, the uses of towel. I think it's a lost art. Because I think roofs are made to keep out rain, to keep out water, right? So why are we extended it above the line, So in a taxpayer, it's an art. You really have to get that bucket down and then almost kind of can't the nozzle, like on a 45, and just get it right up into that cockloaf space, and that's how you're the most efficient at a taxpayer.
Yeah, I tell you, and you were on one. I've seen it blow walls over, interior walls, easy.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I used to do it all the
I
time.
think once you get, you know, when you're up shooting down, you've given up on the building. Uh,
Yeah,
unless there's some kind of hazard, get
hmm
low. To me, that's perfect. Just shoot at that right angle up. Because
right.
if you
But
can't put it out with one or two towers in 15
right,
minutes, then you're not doing nothing.
right. But what I would caution though, Dunn talks about it. You know, the parapet wall and the collapse zone. You really need to respect that collapse zone. Like if it's because that lintel is holding up that parapet wall, right?
Yep.
And if you don't want to be in that collapse zone. I mean, you might have to give up a little, um, let's say, knockdown power for
Yeah,
safety.
reach.
That I have no problem with. But if everything is equal and you have, let's say a 20-foot high, wall, and if you're back, far enough, and you're out of the collapse zone, you could do a lot of damage with that tower ladder. You can put a lot of fire out.
Yeah, it's ironic. It's I'll tell you, 35 years ago today, we had a hardware store, Taxpayer in Southie. And I remember it because Billy Noonan posted a picture of it today. And anyways,
Mm.
it was on the roof, venting the roof, bunch of guys getting nasty. And I was driving that day. Then they pulled us out, whatever. And this kind of somebody told me to move the bucket. I don't even remember. So I moved it. I took out a light pole. Luckily, I didn't kill any guys on the ground. But in what I learned, what I took out of that was one, unless they got a white coat, because like I said, this could have been a spark. And two, I was moving it when I really couldn't see. But I was like, oh, somebody told me to move it. I got to move it. And the irony is, they have that sign hanging up in the firehouse. I just saw it not too long ago with the big gouge in the signboard. And I
Mhm.
laugh because I'm like, I know how that happened. I did that. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
but you're right. And so now, if there was a parapet wall or something, forget taking out the pole. But if I had went the other way, that's what would have happened. I would have hit the parapet wall, not knowing
hmm
if there was anybody down below, hitting the water. So for me as a chief, once I decide, hey, I'm gonna go outside job, uh, that means everybody out and everybody back up. And I feel like that's something maybe a newer chief might struggle with, is letting guys know that, hey, once the decision's made, good, bad, or indifferent, it's been made. Back up. It's like
hmm
not worth it. And what do they call that? People creep. They don't even realize it. They start, they're 50 feet away and now they're 40, now they're 30. And if you're not paying attention,
Right.
uh, that's what's going to happen. But you
Yeah.
definitely
So
parapet walls.
right.
The amount of HVAC systems now, cognizant.
Right.
Yeah, I find opening up taxpayers is difficult, and at a certain point, if it's going good, people are out. Yeah, hope they have insurance. I don't know how else to say it, but
Mm.
um, I hate to use those terms. I don't even know what but that stuff where like if everyone's out to taxpayer, it's 2 in the morning. If you couldn't put it out with a hand line 10 minutes, like
Mm.
you know, it is what it is. Like there was another taxpayer I had real quick. So we go in, following the line, goes in the basement, yada yada. Somehow the engine runs out of air. We get the line.
hmm
I'm thinking like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then the senior guy's like, hey, we got to get the F out of here. We got to get the F out of here.
Mm.
Okay, whatever. I don't care. So follow the line out. And it was probably 2 minutes, but you know how it feels like 10.
Absolutely.
Literally a few minutes after coming out, you just hear this rumble. Well, this was like a mom and pop printing operation.
Mm.
Just this one. And what we heard was the printing machines going through the floor. And I remember
Oh,
thinking, like, because, I was fairly new at the time. I was like, you know something? Either, I won't say stupidity. If that guy never said nothing, I would have stayed. Like, oh, okay, we'll put the fire out. Not thinking,
mm,
I don't know what he's seen, heard, or whatever. But we backed out. I'll never forget it. And he was a line of duty probably 20 years later.
right.
So if you can, I would say before you go in, if and I probably walk right by the print machines and just didn't notice them. So
Yeah.
this goes back to the clear communications to command that anything out of the ordinary, let command know, or the safety chief, somebody like that. But I find, and I also find, whenever the economy takes a hit, that's when the taxpayer fires go up.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of 99-cent stores, So yeah, we're coming up. We're coming up on like 3 minutes left. So I guess we kind of jumped over a lot of stuff. But to recap,
Yeah,
just the takeaways today, then, on the forcible entry, before you jump into anything, do a good size up, see what you got. Go for the weakest link. You'll find a door. You don't have to cut the gates, but if you do start operating and you have a bona fide taxpayer fire, take all the gates at the same. Get them all. Don't piecemeal it. Because get them early. Just get them all because you're gonna need them anyway. 2.5. You hit that. We always that's our SOP in the FDNY for a taxpayer fire is 2.5. No matter if it's a rubbish fire or if it's fully involved, it's 2.5. You mentioned basement fires, and what I've experienced a few times is that you get a very high heat condition, and you get a lot of smoke, but you get no visible fire. If you get that, there's a good chance you have a basement fire. Because I've been at fires where guys are wailing away, with the line, and then they're not hitting anything because there's nothing visible. All the fire was below us. So that's
yeah,
critical. Is locating the fire before we start any operation. And then we
yeah. We're
jumped into
still,
towel, and the towel ladders. I mean, there's definitely, and that's something that could be practiced though. I would, if you have a towel ladder, I would take it out to on a Sunday or a Saturday to the schoolyard
yeah,
to a
flow
school
water.
and flow water and practice with it because it operates totally when you're flowing water as opposed to using it without water. It's a whole different animal because I
Yeah,
I've been in a bucket where it was fully extended, and we're flowing like 800 gallons a minute, whatever, being supplied by 2 3.5s, and this thing is rocking, you know. So I would definitely get out there on drill time and just flow
oh
water.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's why I feel lucky because when I was on it, the guys like to drill. The officers like to drill, and we had a channel right across from us. So it's all built up now, but at the time it was almost like vacant wasteland. You could just go over there and flow water all you wanted. But I agree. I
Yeah.
would say look into that, and just from my
Practice.
perspective, is also get early reports from the rear. Just
Yeah,
make
that's a
it a
good one.
habit.
Get reports. Yeah, roof, rear. Yeah, and yeah, and just practice working that towel out of 5 feet. Lower it down to about
Mhm.
5 feet off the ground, and just practice. Shooting that water up into the whatever. Find a school or
Yeah, yeah,
something. Yep. All right, Eric. I think we're about out of time. This kind of went
yeah.
very
Okay,
quickly. I
Dan.
think we'll continue taxpayers next week again. We have a lot to talk about with taxpayers, right? So
Yep.
un- until next time, be safe, and we'll see you again on the YouTube. Take
Yep.
care, Eric. All right. Ciao,
Have a
ciao.
great day. Yep.
All right. Bye bye. And okay.